I'm Cliff Sims, and we're going to do the walkthrough on the build of the new Müve SL. These are the parts all laid out. We've got a standard rear road wheel set up as a single speed with a trainer skewer, the front and rear movements, the main side plates. Other plates are the chainstay plate with the chain tension adjustment screws, front leg plates. On one of them there's a bubble level for leveling the bike. We have the front foot with the knob that allows you to change the height of the front end of the bike. Stack and reach ruler for setting up the front end of the bike. And you've got your box of hardware. We pre-build the Müve SL chain, that's the right length loop. Saddle extension for getting taller saddle heights. You've got the knob handles with some Loctite for when you put those on the knobs. And then the various other screws and bolts that are all labeled that go along with the paper instructions that also come with the bike. So let's move on to the first few steps of getting this put together. Alright, the first step is to lay the movements out on a flat surface. You can use a table if you want, if you've got enough space. It's totally acceptable to do it on the floor if that's easier. The two movements lay on their side. The front movement has the knobs going forward, the rear movement, knobs going backward. And then just grab one of the main plates. You can see kind of how it lines up. And then you can start to line up the holes and use the main plate screws to start to get them all. Start the threads, don't tighten them, but get them all threaded. Make sure you don't cross thread it. You're doing 2 here, 3 here, and then 2 more of the big ones here. And then this other main plate screws are the smaller size that go down here on the bottom blue block. Now I've flipped over what I've built so far, and the other screws are almost tight and seated, but not tight. They're still a little bit loose. I'm going to take the other plate, put it on here, and basically do the same job. Now for the tightening, you should evenly and slowly kind of tighten the one side. We'll flip it over and then we'll tighten the other side. So the main plates are tight on both sides, all aligned and evenly tightened. While we've got it on its side, we'll put in one of the rear wheel support plates and one of the front leg plates. The front leg has these spacers in between the front plate and the main plate that goes like that. So we have the bike stood up on these lower plates. At this point, it's super helpful to get somebody to come and lift up the front end of the bike so that you can put the front foot in. Got the smaller front foot screws. You'll also find that if you've already tightened this, it may be a little bit difficult to squeeze this in here. If you're having a hard time getting those started, then you can actually loosen up these bolts up here to make sure you get everything started and then tighten everything up again. Now we put the rear wheel in. Make sure that the single speed cog is on the right hand side. The plates come with the tensioning screws already backed out, so the chain will be plenty loose. So just lift up the bike and slide that in. Gotta kind of easel it in there a little bit. And now it should be basically stable, but don't tighten the skewer yet. Now the crank arms on both sides. Just a standard square taper bottom bracket spindle, and the included crank arm bolts. So we've got the rear wheel in, we've got the crank arms installed, the chain ring on this side, cog on the right side here. We're going to grab the chain loop, it's already set, and when we ship this, these tensioner screws are backed up pretty loose, which means the rear wheel comes pretty far forward, so it's easier to put the chain on. Let's grab this loop. Sometimes you get to do some fun untangling. All right, after you've totally untangled the chain, I recommend starting with the back cog, turning the crank out of the way, and actually because this thing will actually rotate backwards, even though it's on the ground, oops, I'll make sure it stays on here. This is the tedious part. Keep that straight, start to rotate backwards, and it should rotate right on. Now it's on, but it's super loose. So you grab a 2.5 ball end hex wrench so that you can kind of come in here at an angle and you start to tighten this screw. When you tighten it, it pushes the axle rearward, which starts to tighten the chain. Do it on both sides evenly until this chain is nice and tight. So it doesn't feel too tight, but it's also kind of difficult for it to actually go down and touch this. You know you're getting close when it starts to really tighten up, so you have to push pretty hard to get it to touch this plate. And you know you're done when these are even, which means, and you can look down the rear of the wheel and make sure it looks nice and straight, even with the center line of the bike. When that's all done, you just tighten your skewer and your chain is set. Now grab the hand wheel handles bag. You can pull these out, use the included Loctite, get a little bit on the threads there, and just hand tighten them into these threaded holes on each of the 5 knobs. You can get a needle nose pliers or a real small wrench, thin wrench, to get that tight, and then that'll hold those on there. Here's the stack and reach ruler that comes with the Müve SL. Using it to set stack and reach is a quick way to determine where the center of this V groove is on this steerer mount and the center of the bottom bracket, both horizontally and vertically. To do reach, you set the ruler in the little holder that's on this side of the bike and set the ruler on this little tab here. And where this blue block, the rear side of it, crosses the ruler is the measurement from bottom bracket to the center of this divot. It's 39 centimeters in this case. For stack, you hold the ruler vertically, place it on this surface, and wherever it crosses on the stack side of the numbers, on the bottom edge of this entire upper movement is the distance from the bottom bracket to the center of the V groove, and in this case, it's 60 centimeters. That's pretty much it. Thanks.